Yeah. In this session, our focus is majorly on, see, when we are investing in some fixed income securities, there are lots of what you call lots of risks that are associated, like interest rates may fluctuate and our bond value may go down, right? There are so many, almost 12 to 13 types of risks that are typically identified for anyone who is investing in a fixed income security. It's a bond, though we say it's a fixed income, there are so many risks that are associated with it. There are so many uncertainties that are associated with it, which is what we are trying to cover as a part of this session. So some of the things, just on a brief note, is you have interest rate risk. Whenever we say interest rate risk, whatever is the loss that my bond is going to have, let's say I have already invested in the bond, whatever is the loss I may get because of the change in the interest rates during my bond holding period. Probably it's like thinking, I could have invested in a better bond, but I have already blocked my money by investing in a slightly not so good kind of a bond, because the interest rates are changing. So probably initially when you have purchased a bond, when the interest rates were low, and for let's say 5 year kind of a maturity, right? Just like a fixed deposit, you have taken a fixed deposit today when the interest rates are 7%, but suddenly after 1 year you are finding that the interest rates have gone up to 8.5% or 9%. You will immediately start feeling, oh, I have taken a 5 year fixed deposit at 7%. Probably I could have taken it at 8.5%. If I had waited for one more year, I could have taken it at 8 or 8.5%. So because of change in the interest rates in the market, we feel that the bond is actually losing some value. The investment, whatever we have made, has actually lost its value. That kind of risk is what we are calling as interest rate risk. Then when a bond is callable, we have already discussed, the bond is called only at the benefit of the issuer, right? Whenever the bond is called, whatever the return which the investor has to get, he will get lesser than that. So there is a loss in value because of callable kind of a bond. When a bond is called prior to the maturity date, there is some loss in value which an investor is getting. So that is also one more risk, because most of the times, we have already discussed, most of the times that the bond will be called back only when the market prevailing interest rates have gone very low. So whatever the amount that I am getting back, it's very difficult for me to reinvest, or I may end up reinvesting it at a much lesser interest rate. Then we are talking about prepayment risk, like early payment, just like a call. Prepayment risk is also like when I'm in case of a loan, when I'm repaying my loan at a much early date, right? At least some principal, more than the required amount of principal, I am repaying it early, right? There is a possibility again that the bank or any other party who have lent you, they don't know what to do with that money. So again, there is a kind of risk that is associated because of the loss in value. Then we are talking of yield curve risk. The yield curve risk, what happens is, instead, let's say the central bank, the reserve bank, has increased the interest rate by 25 basis points, 0.25%. Now, sometimes what could happen is the short term interest rates may change drastically. Let's say the banks, the way they react to the RBI's interest rate change of 25 basis points is uneven. For short term bonds or for short term deposits, they may change the interest rate by 50 basis point, 0.5%, but for long term, they may not change at all. So what we are saying here is the yield curve, which means with the time, that's the definition of an yield curve. With time, whatever are the interest rates, right? If that is not evenly changed, so probably here this is increased by 0.5%, but long-term investments, no increase in the interest rate. Or probably it could happen the reverse. Short-term interest rates, no change, but long-term interest rates are increased by 0.5%. So if probably the RBI has increased the interest rate by 25 basis point, if all of the, for all maturities, if the interest rates increase by 25 basis points, we say that there is no yield curve risk because there is a parallel shift in the yield curve. All of them are increased by 25 basis points. But if the banks react differently, for different maturities, they change the interest rates differently. That is what we call as a non-parallel shift. And because of that, my portfolio can lose, because sometimes if the short-term rates are increased, right, versus long-term rate, I could have very well felt, oh, why did I invest for 5 years? I could have invested for 2 years and captured the bigger profit out of it. So some such kind of calculations will come up. So whatever is the loss that is coming up because of the uneven change or non-parallel shift in the yield curve, the shape of the yield curve not shifting parallelly is what is contributing to the yield curve risk. See, right now the yield curve, let's say, I'll showcase that anyhow. Let's say right now the yield curve is more like this. So for 1 year maturity, this is the interest rate. For 2 years maturity, this is the interest rate, and so on. Now let's say the central bank, the federal bank or the RBI has increased the interest rates by 0.25%. Now if the banks react to that change parallelly, something like this, then whatever is the loss in value that I have can be directly looked at as 0.25%. Probably the interest rate has gone up by 0.25%. Then what comes out to me is the interest rate risk, right? But if this move is something like this, or probably something like this, wherein the short-term rates have changed drastically, whereas the long-term rate did not change. So depending on, so what we would be doing is, okay, if this has been this, the entire thing is interest rate risk. But because of this, I may lose more or I may gain more. There is a loss side as well as a gain side, right? Depending on what portfolio I am having, right? If I am having more of short-term deposits, probably I may be more impacted by this than this versus the reverse. So because of that, whatever is the